Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Middleware Technologies. Today we'll be looking at a tool related to documentation which is basically Sphinx. So we will be looking at how we can use Sphinx to generate elegant documentation for our project. Okay, so I'm currently working on Fedora 37 workstation, and yes, so let us see what is Sphinx. So Sphinx is a Python-based documentation generation tool, which basically helps in generating the documentation for any project which we are working on. Okay, so we can generate documents in various formats like HTML, PDF, JSON, text, EPUB, like that is PDF, and plain text. Okay, so these are some of the formats that I have mentioned, but there are many other formats that we can convert our documentation into using the Sphinx tool. Okay, Sphinx uses RST format, that is restructured text format, the markup language by default, and it can also read MyST markup or markdown via third-party extension. Okay, and one thing to note, Sphinx is the documentation tool that is used to generate the Python documentation also. Okay, so that is in short about what is Sphinx. And let us go into our procedure, how we can use Sphinx to generate documentation for our simple or very basic project. Okay, so as a first step, we need to install Sphinx. Okay, so if you go into the Sphinx website, so you can search for Sphinx docs, and if you go into the Sphinx documentation, installing Sphinx, that you will see different methods are available for installing Sphinx. We can install it on Linux, Mac OS, and Ubuntu Linux or Red Hat Linux, and we can also install it via the Python package, that is installing via pip, and we can also use the Docker image to launch Sphinx. Okay, so there are multiple options that are available to install Sphinx, but in our in our article or in our video, we are going to use the installation method of pip, Python package. So we'll go ahead with this command to install Sphinx. Okay, so in my case, I already have Sphinx already installed, but let me run this and show you. You can see the following requirements are already satisfied, Sphinx and the related components are already installed. The -u option is basically installing it for the user with which you are currently working on. Okay, now let us go into our once the Sphinx is installed, you can verify the version using the Sphinx build tool. Okay, so let us go and run this Sphinx build version. Okay, so as you can see, we have 7.0.1 that is installed currently. Let us go into our next step, that is creating documentation source. So as I said, Sphinx is used to generate documentation out of plain text files or the RST documents, which is the default markup language used by Sphinx. So in order to work with Sphinx, so we will first try to generate a template or a structure for the documentation generation project. Okay, so here we are going to use the Sphinx quick start tool, which will generate our skeleton documentation with some set of files. that we will be looking at in more details, like what exactly that looks like. Okay, so as a part of this step, like we will be generating a structure to in order to create our documentation source. Okay, so let us go into our shell, and here like let me create a directory called learn spinx 2. Okay, and let us I think let me remove this, there is a spelling mistake over here, and let me create learn spinx 2. Okay, and let us change into that directory. So this is going to be our working directory wherein we will generate our documentation project. Okay, so let me run this Sphinx quick start over here. So this is going to create our skeleton for the documentation project. So it will ask for a few questions, wherein the first question is, you have two options for placing the build directory for Sphinx. Either you can place it under a directory called underscore build within the same folder, or you can separate the source and build directory within the root. Okay, so for now let us keep it same, like under the root directory only we will build our documentation. So let us answer it as no, and let us answer the project name. Let me name it as learn Sphinx 2, author name Novus Java 1, and the project release 1.0, let us give it. And for the language in which we want to generate this documentation, let us give it as English, EN. Okay, so this creates our skeleton, wherein as you can see, like it has created the following files in the directory. Okay, so we'll look at it one by one. So let me clear my screen and do ls-ltr. You can see like these are the following folders and files that have been created for our documentation project by default. So we can take this as a baseline and try to create our documentation for any project. Okay, so let me brief you about all of these folders that I've created. So templates is basically used to create some kind of templates which can be utilized for the HTML files that are getting generated by Sphinx. And underscore statics is a folder which contains the static content like CSS, images, videos, which we want to use it in our the HTML documentation that we are generating. Okay, and underscore build is the target directory in which the HTML content gets generated in our root or the base folder. Okay, and the most important file in Sphinx is the config.py file. So let me open this config.py file. So this config.py file holds the project information that we have provided during the Sphinx quick start, and there are some other configurations that we can do, but if you see, like the template path is underscore templates. So let's say if you have any templates, it will be using from this folder. And exclude pattern, basically it excludes the following folders from generating the HTML documentation or whichever format documentation that we are going to generate. Okay, and the last two, like basically if you see the HTML theme, like there are multiple themes that are available in Sphinx which we can use, but Alabaster is the default theme that comes with Sphinx. And if you want to install different themes, like we can go through that. Like I have shown one theme that we can install and utilize. Okay, and HTML static is the static folder. Like here we are using underscore static. So all these folders like underscore template and underscore static are based on the current directory. So wherein the config.py file is present. Okay, so this is the basic configuration file that gets generated for us. So Sphinx is going to use this config.py in order to generate our documentation. Okay, so it will use the configurations that we have provided in this file, and based on that it is going to generate our documentation. Okay, and one thing to note is the HTML theme is Alabaster, so it is going to use this theme and generate our documentation by default. Okay, so we have seen like the template, static and build folder and the config.py file, and the second most important file in this is index.rst file. Okay, so index.rst file is going to be our landing page for this documentation project. Okay, so this is basically the content that you see over here is basically the RST documentation content. Okay, RST markup. Okay, so here this is basically a heading, and this TOC tree is basically a directive. So a directive is starting with these two dots and ending with these two colons. Okay, and these under the directory, like whatever you see with colon, are called options, and so this is the basic structure or basic things that are related to the RST format. So in order to learn more about the RST format, like you can go into Google and search for RST documentation. Okay, so it will take you to the restructured documentation. So if you it is already present in the Sphinx documentation also, the restructure primer, so wherein you will get to see like what are the different format markup that we can use in order to convert plain text into a particular format. Okay, so let's say if you want to emphasize text, like we can put that text in star. Okay, so if you put two asterisks, it goes for strong emphasis. Okay, and there are other formats like you can create list and quote blocks. So basically this is like how we can create the list and quote blocks, like using the star or using the numbers or using the hash. Okay, so these are the specifics related to the RST structure that you can go through, but here like we are like interested more in generating the documentation using the Sphinx. So we will look at Sphinx in this like video. Okay, so let me go into my shell back and let me close this. So this is basically the RST document that we are going to use in order to convert it into the HTML format, and index.rst is going to be our landing page from where like we will be able to navigate into our like parent or child documentation that we are going to generate further in our video. Okay, let us go into our next file, that is Makefile. So Makefile is basically the file that is going to be utilized in order to generate the documentation using the make command line utility. Okay, so as you can see, like we have the Makefile which gets generated by default has the following options in place. So it uses Sphinx options, which is currently none. It is not set to anything. Sphinx build is set to Sphinx build. So this is the tool that we are basically we use in order to generate our documentation or build our documentation. Okay, and Sphinx build takes two arguments, that is source directory and build directory. Yeah, and these are the arguments that we need to pass, but these these arguments can be set as the environment variables also. Okay, so if we are going to run the make utility without any arguments, it is going to like generate the help output. Okay, so it will show like what all options are required to generate the documentation. Okay, so it basically takes the Sphinx build with the source directory and the build directory and the options which if we have any, we can pass it, otherwise it will be empty. Okay, so this is basic about the make HTML file that gets generated, and make.bat is basically related to the Windows, but I'm currently working on Linux, so I'll just ignore about that file. Okay, so let me go into my documentation again. So in our step 2, like what we have done is we have created the directory, we have changed it into directory and ran the Sphinx quick start, which will generate our config.py and our documentation structure. Okay, so this whole step is completed in our side, and now in the third step, like I have just mentioned, like understanding the directory structure, that also we have completed. Like we have seen the directory structure, which consists of build, static and template folders with the config.py, which is an important file, and the index.rxt, which is going to be our landing page, and the Makefile, which is the file that is going to be utilized while generating the content using generating the documentation using the make command line utility. Okay, and let us go now to step 4, that is adding RST additional RST documents. Okay, so here as I said, like we can navigate to our other child documents from our landing page, that is index.rst. Okay, so let us see like how we can do that using this step. So let us try to create one file called installation.rst. so here, so I'm going to create installation.rst file, and I'm just going to copy this content. So this is going to be our installation documentation, wherein we have 3 steps, that is install prerequisites, and this is going to be another literal another directive that we are going to use over here, which basically markups our code. Okay, and we are going to take the same parsed literal in order to mark up our code for other 2 steps, that is download package and install package. So we are just going to install the prerequisite, that is curl, and then download the package for our application, that using the curl, and then we are going to install that package. So this is just generic steps in order to show you like how we can write documentation. Okay, so let me save this, and we will also create another RST document that is called user guide. So let me create this user guide also. So here, so let me copy the user guide documentation. So this is going to be our user guide, wherein we will use that package in order to get version, that is netcap version, and we can get the help with it, that is netcap help, and we can list the components, that is netcap list all. So this is very basic, like in order to just to show you like how we can write documentation. Okay, so let me save these two documentations that we have created using the RST format. And now like we need to update our index.rst file so that it can refer to those documentations. Okay, so in our index.rst file, like you can see, like we already have a table of content tree directive already present with max depth of 2. Okay, and the caption is contents. Okay, so in order to refer to those two documentations that we have created, we need to create first insert a blank line over here and press enter, and then we need to like provide the names of those RST documents in line with the options, that is max depth and caption options. Okay, so here I am going to name installation, and there is no need to provide the .rst extension. Sphinx is going to automatically detect those files based on these names, and it is going to index those. Okay, and here we are going to use the other name, that is user guide. Okay, so that is it. We need to save this document, index.rst file. Now like it's time to generate our documentation, that is build HTML content. So in this step 5, like we are going to build the HTML content. So in order to build the HTML content, like there are two methods which we can follow. The one is using the Sphinx build command line utility, and the other one is using the Makefile. Okay, so first like we will use the method of Sphinx build. So let me copy this and paste it. So Sphinx build, so this is a very basic command that we can use to generate our HTML documentation, where -b option is called the builder option, wherein it takes the format or in which we want to generate the documentation. So in this case, like we are using the HTML format to generate the documentation, and where we are having the source of our documentation, that is plain RST file, is current directory. Okay, and our build directory is going to be _build, that is present in the current directory. So let us run this. So as you can see, like it has built the documentation successfully. The HTML pages are present in _build. So now let us clear our shell and try to see the directory structure looks now. Okay, so as you can see, the build directory is now populated with all the HTML files and so this JavaScript file, and the underscore source is basically the source for those HTML files. Okay, so it is going to be these RST files. Okay, and the static content, like as you can see, like there are a bunch of CSS files and JavaScript script files that got created under the statics folder. So basically the Sphinx has used the HTML theme Albuster, and it has downloaded all the static files related to that theme and kept it in this static folder. Okay, and other than that, all the other files like are same, like the config.py, rst file, installation file, makefile, make.byte file, static template. So these are all files that we had already created using the skeleton documentation step. So this is how our tree structure looks after the build has been completed. Okay, now it's time to validate our documentation. Okay, so we have seen the directory structure of our documentation project after the build. So this is how it looks, and as I said, like instead of passing like all these options, like whatever we passed over here right now, like the -p HTML and source and build directory. So instead of passing all these options to the Sphinx build, like we can leverage the Makefile that has been generated by the project skeleton already, like which uses this default options. Okay, so we can use this to create our documentation also using the make utility. Okay, so let me delete my build directory which we created using the Sphinx build. So I'll delete this one. So now it is empty. So now let us use make HTML. So HTML is the format or the builder into which like we want to generate the documentation. Okay, so let us run this, and now you can see the HTML build has been succeeded and the HTML pages are generated in _build HTML. Okay, so let me clear my screen and do tree directory structure. So it is now same as what we have got using the Sphinx build. Okay, so let me clear my screen. Now in our step, let us go into our next step, that is step 6, that is validate the generated documentation. So now it's time to load our landing page. So I'll use Firefox for here to load my landing page, that is index.html, that got generated in HTML build index.html. Okay, so now you can see like our landing page looks like this. So it has created the content, that is table of content, that is installation guide. So as you can see, this installation guide is pretty much formatted, the code is formatted. Okay, we can go into our user guide also, like the user guide is also like pretty much formatted using the RST format that we have used in the documents. Okay, so this is how it looks with the Alabaster theme. So it creates a navigation bar also on the left hand side, so you can see you can navigate through this also, and you can search for the documentation using the search utility that is provided, and you can refer to that. Okay, so this is how the basic documentation that gets generated using the Sphinx. Okay, so now let us go into our the article of documentation again, and as I said, like if we are going to generate the documentation using make, and if you're not passing any arguments over here, so if we are just going to run make as it is, so it is going to provide us with the arguments or options that we can pass to make, like which basically is the target into which we want to generate the documents. Okay, so these are the different document formats that we can generate our plain text documentation, or convert our plain text documentation into using the Sphinx. Okay, so this is a huge number of formats that we can generate, but please note, like if you are going to generate some of these formats, like you need to ensure like the relevant packages are also available on your like system. So basically, if you are going to generate the PDF documentation, so you need to ensure like you have the relevant packages already installed on your machine, so that it is able to like convert those plain text documentation into the PDF documentation. Okay, so you will get to know as and when like you try to build the documentation. So let me show you over here, like if you try to use make so let's say latex PDF. So if you want to generate it, okay, so you will see like it is like throwing an error like latex mk which is the actual utility that is used to convert into the PDF. So it is not available, so it is not able to like basically generate the PDF files. Okay, so these errors like you will get, and you will need to fix it in order to ensure that you are able to convert the plain text or the RST documentation into the relevant format. Okay, so let me clear my screen, and here if you see the build structure of the build, like you will have the latex folder also created, but that is not required for us right now. Like we are concentrating more on HTML, so that you can ignore. Okay, so without any option to make, like we will see the different target formats that we can generate using Sphinx. Okay, sorry, okay, this came up. Let me remove this one. Okay, so now as I said in the start, like we will be using a different theme, like we will be updating our documentation with a different theme and try to rebuild our documentation. Okay, so for that, like I'm going to install Furo, like that is one of the Sphinx theme. Okay, so the Furo theme is already installed, but if you want to like see like what are the different themes that are available, so, like you can go and search for Sphinx themes over here, and it will take you to the Sphinx themes gallery. So you can browse for themes. So Alabaster is the default, and like you can see, read the docs is there, Furo is there, books is there. So these are the different formats which we can use in order to generate our documentation. Let me do one thing. So let me install this Piccola theme. Okay, so let's try to use that Piccola theme. Okay, so first pip install -u Piccolo. Okay, okay, so that theme is installed now. So once the theme is installed, the next thing that we need to do is we need to update our config.py, so it refers to that theme or uses that theme to generate our documentation. So instead of Alabaster, I'm going to use that theme in the HTML theme parameter. Okay, so now let us save this, and now as we have saved this config, now let us try to generate or rebuild our documentation using that theme. Okay, so let me run make HTML again, and the build is successful. And now let us load our documentation landing page, that is index.html file. Yeah, as you can see, this is really nice looking documentation that we have generated. So you can see the table of content is over here. Okay, so that can be highlighted or hidden, and if you go on clicking the installation guide, it takes you to the installation guide. If you go on clicking the user guide, it takes you to the user guide, and here you have the search option, and if you click on the documentation the title, like it takes you to the landing page again. Okay, so this really looks nice. So if you have any project that you have built and you want to prepare the documentation, like you can use Sphinx to generate this documentation. The only thing is, like you need to learn about Sphinx, the first thing, and the other one is RST documentation. So RST is a markup language that you need to understand in order to write your plain text documentation using the RST markup language, and that can really create a very elegant documentation for your project. Okay, And Sphinx can also be used to generate documentation from the source code, which we will try to see in our next video if possible, like how we can write source code with documentation strings and try to generate the documentation out of that using Sphinx. Okay, so this is all I wanted to show you in this video or article, wherein we like basically used Sphinx in order to generate the documentation for our project. And as I said, Sphinx is purely Python written documentation generation project, which you can further explore in the basically if you search for Sphinx GitHub, like you can go into the Sphinx documentation generator GitHub project. So it is basically like purely most of the language that is used is Python in order to create this project. Okay, so yes, that is all for this video. Thank you all, thanks for watching this video, and you guys have a great day.